Welcome into Keys of the Game, here with the Clemson Insider alongside Julia Haskins. I'm Taylor Farmer. To break down this week's college football matchup, the Clemson Tigers are headed to play the Louisville Cardinals this weekend. Julia, let's start with the Clemson offense. What have you seen out of the Tigers this season? What do you think we'll see this weekend?
Well, Taylor, I think at the beginning of the season, obviously got off to a rocky start. But since then, people have just been waiting, I feel like, for this one moment, this one game where everything was just going to click.
Right.
Maybe we would see, DJ perform similarly to last year in Boston College and Notre Dame. We would see the explosion again, looking a little bit like Clemson's old self. Mm-hmm. But it's week 10, and we haven't seen that yet. And I just don't think people expected this improvement to be so slow and slow gradual. This is truly a rebuilding year. Right. And obviously you have to account for the injuries and so unpredictable, and especially in the O-line. There's a lot of young guys there now. They're basically hanging on by a thread. They've reached so far in their depth chart, and they really need to work, have these young guys fill bigger responsibilities this weekend and just create those seams for running backs like Will Shipley.
Yeah, with Will Shipley, he's had huge responsibility this year. He's a true freshman who was Clemson's leading rusher with 391 yards. And last weekend, he was essentially left by himself. Clemson was down to one running back. Phil Moffitt was hurt in the fourth quarter, and Kobe Pace was out due to COVID protocols. Now, Shipley's done an excellent job for Clemson in the run game, and he's caught the attention of Trevor Lawrence, who tweeted out to him, "Will Shipley, the truth, big things ahead," which is huge for Will Shipley and what he's trying to do in this Clemson offense. And now, I would say that Clemson's run game is the strength of their offense, but their running back room started super deep before the season, and then Chaz Malusi transferred to Wisconsin before the season started, and Lynn J. Dixon and Mikey Dukes entered the transfer portal this season. And like I said, Pace was out and Moffitt was hurt, so that led Darian Rencher, who I believe has had 4 carries this season, and the weight on Will Shipley. So Coach Sweeney says that the running backs have been their challenge. They've had to get creative in practice, and they have emergency running backs ready, but he says that's top secret. So I think that means that should Clemson's running back room get any thinner, then we might see someone who hasn't played running back have to step in and play running back. Hopefully not, but I think it could happen.
Definitely. And in terms of Louisville's defense and what to expect this weekend, big news coming out of there was that top cover corner Ketrell Clark is out for the season with an ACL tear. He leads the conference with 12 passes defended, including 3 interceptions. And he's the third player on the Cardinals starter lost to a season-ending injury. So honestly, these teams are sort of in the same headspace with the adversity they faced, with the depth they've had to go in their roster.
Right, and with Louisville's defense, they have an okay front. They've done a good job at disguising coverage. Earlier in the season, that was their thing, a lot of coverage. But lately, it's been a lot of pressure. They want to get to the quarterback. They want to stop the run game. And facing good running teams like Boston College and NC State, that's what they've wanted to do. Get pressure on the quarterback and make him make plays in the passing game. And if I had to guess, that's what they'll do against Clemson this weekend. And although Clemson's had a shaky offense, I think that they'll find success against this Louisville defense, who's allowing their opponents to score over 21 points per game. I mean, when they played Virginia last month, who your brother plays for, they allowed Virginia to score 3 touchdowns in that fourth quarter alone. But in saying that, I think that Louisville's offense doesn't stand a very good chance against Clemson's defense. Clemson's defense is allowing just 324 yards of total offense per game and allowing their opponents to score just 15 points per game. Now, Clemson's defensive line is capable of keeping their opponents' rushing yards and passing yards very low. And I think that they'll have a big challenge, however, this weekend facing another mobile quarterback. But Trenton Simpson said in his interview this week that Clemson's defensive line has been huge for their secondary, huge for what their linebackers want to do, just knowing how aggressive they are. I mean, last weekend when Clemson played Florida State, Xavier Thomas comes out of nowhere and sacks Jordan Travis from behind, and Simpson says that that's somewhat of what their defense relies on, is their defensive line being so aggressive, making a linebacker's job easier. He says that for Clemson's defense this week, their focus is going to be the same as it was last week. Louisville has an explosive offense and a mobile quarterback, so they're going to want to limit the quarterback, contain him, and limit plays with his legs.
And going off of that, I think the Clemson defense just needs to keep doing what they've been doing this whole season. Coach Dabo Swinney actually, though, wasn't that pleased with how the defense played in the first half of the Florida State game, but luckily they got it together in the second half. They had 6 sacks, 10 tackles for loss. Jordan Travis had -4 yards. They allowed 65 rushing yards. I mean, they just need to keep doing what they're doing and use the momentum from the second half of this Florida State game to translate against Louisville.
Right, and with Louisville's offense, obviously, we've talked about them having a mobile quarterback. Junior quarterback Malik Cunningham has a 60.5% completion rate this season, and Coach Swinney says it seems like every week Clemson's defense is having to face a freak show at quarterback. He's got a great skill set. He's an excellent runner. He's a problem with his legs. He's an excellent passer, and he's very accurate. I mean, there are 6 teams in the country right now that are averaging 200 yards rushing and passing, and Louisville is one of them. Louisville exceeds Clemson this season in both passing and rushing yards, and this is a team that's very well balanced. Their ability to move the ball from a quarterback perspective and with the run game is crucial. And interestingly enough, their quarterback is their leading rusher. But I think that plays to Clemson's advantage because if their quarterback's their leading rusher, he's obviously getting more tired because of the dependability of their offense for him to run the ball.
I totally agree. I mean, Cunningham is a really explosive, dynamic, dual-threat guy.
Yeah.
Clemson's defense is going to need to account for this and look out for him. And he's just really confident in his running game, so I think we're going to see a lot more of that.
I think so too. Well, the name of this show obviously is Keys to the Game. So we just broke down both teams' offenses and defense. Julia, what would you say is this weekend's key to the game?
Well, definitely for Clemson on offense, no turnovers. There is no room for error. The margin for errors is just too small, and it's going to be detrimental if those turnovers accumulate. On the defensive side, just limiting penalties.
Right. And I would say, as simple as it sounds, Clemson can't score for the other team. When they won against Boston College and Syracuse, no turnovers. Now in the past 2 games against Pitt and Florida State, they've had 5 turnovers. And they've allowed 3 defensive touchdowns this season that have all been costly. Georgia on the pick 6 wins 10-3 against the Tigers. And then Pitt goes up 21-7 after after they have a defensive score. And then Florida State goes up midway through that 4th quarter on the fumble return. So I think that's going to be huge for Clemson. Just focusing on those little things for, I guess, both teams this weekend. But that's all for Keys of the Game here in the Clemson Insider Studio alongside Julia Haskins and Taylor Farmer.